Information coming in from the besieged port town of Mariupol. Here we have new satellite images from the besieged Mariupol town after hundreds and thousands of residents of that city who are currently under siege are fearful of their lives. They live under constant threat of shelling without water, food and medicine. These are satellite images that shows how you have hundreds and thousands of residents who are currently hiding. In fact, they are under constant threat, most of them not being able to access essential necessities, including water, food, medicine. Meanwhile, another set of satellite images here showing Ukraine's fight back. Ukraine pushes Russia back to Kherson. Satellite images here on the 16th of March shows how Russian choppers, in fact, on the 21st of March, it shows that there are no choppers left. In fact, we see that Ukraine forces have managed to push back those Russian army and Russian troops, stop them on their tracks in many areas of Mariupol, outside of Mariupol. These images here very clearly shows Ukrainians' stiff resistance. Ukraine, their shells, Russia's military artillery, many of them have been deterred and stopped on their tracks. Let me cut across to Gaurav Sawant for more on that. Gaurav, satellite images here showing how Ukrainians are putting up a tough fight as much as Russia wants to fully capture and take control of the strategic port city of Mariupol. It seems like they haven't had it easy. 28 days on, at least for the last 2 weeks, Mariupol has been under constant fire and bombardments. But so long, Russia hasn't been able to achieve success there.
You know, that story that you were just mentioning about Kherson, I want to for a moment focus on that. Kherson is one area where Russia had said it's well and truly in control, and the mayor of Kherson had actually agreed to work with the Russian forces. This is where Ukraine mounted a very swift and a very hard counter-attack. And here they used their unmanned combat aerial vehicles and certain other missiles that they got access to, where they destroyed a large number of Russian helicopters on the tarmac. So on the tarmac of Kherson, if by Ukrainian accounts, there are 48 helicopters that have been destroyed. We do not know whether that's an authentic figure, but that is what they claimed. They put out pictures which showed at least 10 to 12 helicopters that had been destroyed on the heliport itself. And that would show that Ukraine is able to hit back and hard. Ukraine also claimed that was in Kherson that a 2-star general of the Russian army was killed in action. He was at the command headquarters, and that is where at command headquarters an artillery offensive was mounted based on intelligence. Now, if these bits of information that we are able to glean are actually authentic, because in the fog of war, Russia makes certain claims, Ukraine makes certain claims, and unless you're on ground zero with access to that information, you're not really sure. But Ukraine has claimed that they've killed so far 4 generals of the Russian army, from a brigadier general to a 3-star general. That is their claim. And Russia, of course, did concede about a couple of top officers being killed in action. But the second part on Mariupol, the information we have is that the Russian army is in the Mariupol town. There are certain suburbs where the Ukrainian Azov battalion continues to fight back, and certain Ukrainian militia, they continue to resist the Russians. But the town is devastated, and horrifying images of that devastation in terms of buildings destroyed, certain other infrastructure destroyed. While we were in Mariupol, their airport had been destroyed, and their radars had been completely shattered. This becomes crucial because the Sea of Azov actually is very crucial for Ukraine to access, water, which is being denied by Russia, with its Black Sea fleet also deployed there and its forces poised to launch a maritime offensive. So look at the bigger picture. You have the Sea of Azov in Russian control, as they claim. You have Russian forces moving forward towards Odessa, but some setback in Kherson. So these pitched battles continue even on day 28, where Russia's aim is to cut off Ukraine's access to sea, to cut off Mariupol, to ensure that from Crimea to Mariupol they have one access. That, in case successful, would be a major setback for President Zelensky and his forces.
You know, Gaurav, if I can ask you to explain to us these images that we see here of the satellite images that shows many Russian choppers above the port city of Mariupol, and they've disappeared on the 21st of March. barely from the 18th to 21st, we see that Ukrainians have put up stiff resistance. And this comes almost after the threat coming from Russia, asking for Ukrainians and Ukrainian forces to lay down their arms for a safe passage out. But despite that threat, it appears that Ukrainians have now stood up even stronger and mightier against Russian troops. These satellite images are so telling.
Yes, these satellite images are extremely telling on two levels. One, the access to technology that Ukraine continues to enjoy, and the fighting spirit of the Ukrainian forces. And when you interact with these Ukrainian forces, and for a month, we had been interacting with soldiers and tactical commanders on ground, and had also interviewed Oleksiy Kuleba, the governor of the Kyiv military region. Their fighting spirit is tremendous. This access to weapons and systems continues, and because they have access to weapons and systems and their 8-year-long training with the NATO countries, they have been able to resist the Russian forces. Did the Russian forces actually expect this kind of resistance? From all accounts, no. They did think that there would be some resistance, but they thought they had complete air supremacy, which is not true. Even on day 28, if Russians are unable to bring in their Su-34 fighters and Su-30 fighters with complete air dominance, because that is their role that is anticipated of these aircraft, and yet you have the Ukrainian surface-to-air missiles that are operational. The images that you're putting out on our television screens for our viewers to see helicopters being destroyed in Kherson would indicate that the Ukrainian forces have access to technology and their fighting spirit, and they're able to destroy Russian weapons and systems in a town that Russia had officially claimed it had liberated. So this would indicate that even on day 28 or between day 25 and 28, this fight back remains intense and continues, and that a bridge being destroyed on the outskirts of Kyiv is again an indication that that big battle for Kyiv is yet to take place.
Right. Stay with us, Gaurav. I'm going to quickly cut across to Rajesh Pawar, who's also joining us from Kiev. Rajesh, we hear from Ukrainian forces and the reports that we get from on ground that they've managed to stop short Russian troops in some parts of suburb Kiev. Apart from that, these images that we are showing on our television screens right here show how Ukrainians have managed to chase away Russian troops from parts of Mariupol. This is the besieged city where Russia is really desperate to gain complete control of, but they haven't been successful even on day 28.
Look, as far as Mariupol is concerned, Russian troops are in control of more than 90% city there. There are only few quarters of resistance still remaining where fighting is going on, and Russian troops are clearing the city house to house, street to street, because some Ukrainian troops as well as some militia of Azov battalion is still holding on, and they are hiding inside the buildings and attacking the Russian forces in the streets. So there's a kind of guerrilla warfare going on right now, only in certain quarters of Mariupol, not in the whole city. And in those pockets, Russian army is clearing house to house and street to street, which will take some time. Also, there are reports that Mariupol, some quarters of resistance in Mariupol city have been bombed by the naval ships from Sea of Azov, which they bombed the city from the seaside.
Rajesh, what's the situation in Kiev? You are in Kiev. Would you be able to show us what's outside? If you can give us an understanding on how tense or calm the situation is on day 28 in the capital, Kiev?
Look, I'm going out in another few minutes, and then I'll be able to show you in the next show the city outside.
Yeah.
But after a 4 days break, there was heavy bombardment yesterday, very heavy bombardment in the city. And today morning, there were 2 barrages of rockets fired from multi-barrel rocket launchers, which was about 30 blasts, if I could count them, 15 and then 15, which was also in the eastern part of the city, heavy bombardment. As far as ground forces are concerned, there is not much movement. The reports are Russian forces are digging in and making the defenses on the perimeter of Kyiv city, so that in case there's any counterattack from Ukrainian forces, they can stop it. Also, that they are probably trying to encircle the city and stay as such, and not trying to enter the city as of now. Over to you.
We understand that Joe Biden is now going to be arriving in Poland. He's going to be having a talk with European leaders. And does this give a sense of security to Ukraine in any way, or do they still feel that no help has come from NATO, and this will only increase threats of further atrocities, because Putin now, of course, on full guard, has already tried to flex his nuclear muscle?
Look, Joe Biden, who will be arriving tonight in Europe, in Brussels, he will have a meeting with the NATO partners. Then he will have a meeting with the leaders of European Union, and then G7 meet. It is. People are taking it as more of a symbolic visit unless something comes out in that NATO meet on the key demands of Ukrainians, which is supply of military aircrafts and enforcement of no-fly zone. In that direction, I think more or less NATO and America has made their stance very clear that they will not do any of these two things. He will also be visiting Poland, who has been asking for a peacekeeping troops in Ukraine, which America has refused so far, and I don't think there will be any movement on that accord as well. Poland is right now reeling under pressure of almost 2 million refugees who have come from Ukraine. It is affecting their economy, and the infrastructure is under heavy stress. So this is also a visit where Biden probably will be assuring his Polish counterpart about more humanitarian aid and more money to look after the refugees.
You know, Rajesh, do stay with us. We have Gaurav there who's joining us from Poland himself. Gaurav, we know that Joe Biden is arriving there as he gears up to speak to those leaders. Is this a sense of security at all for Ukrainians? And we believe that millions of refugees have already crossed into Poland. What's the situation there like, and how is this really going to bolster Ukraine on the 28th day of this war? They feel weak, but they're still showing that spirit.
So they're showing spirit. They have the weapons as of now, and they're fighting. And it's creditable that on day 28, they continue to fight. But can they take this fight forward in terms of what will Joe Biden do? As Rajesh Pawar was rightly pointing out, while this is symbolic in terms of military hardware, Ukraine will get some more military hardware covertly in terms of those Javelin anti-tank guided missiles, in terms of those ATGMs, Stinger surface-to-air missiles. Ukraine is asking for S-300 systems. Now, S-300 is a very complex air defense system. India, of course, has the upgraded S-400 systems. Ukraine is asking for S-300. Which country will risk giving S-300 to Ukraine when Russia said whichever country provides this to Ukraine will be seen as enemy action? That's point one. Point two, Poland agreed to give its MiG-29s, to Ukraine. They could have done it across the border. They did not. They instead chose to give it to Germany and told NATO to give it to Ukraine. It was a non-starter because then America said this is untenable. Clearly, NATO does not want to take on Russia and expand this fight into a world war. They want to contain it, which is also Russia's intention, telling NATO not to get involved. Poland's apprehension is, if Russia is successful in Ukraine today, then in the years ahead, it will look at Poland. It wants guarantees from NATO in terms of troop deployment, in terms of weapons and systems, including Patriot systems, surface-to-air missile systems, F-16 fighter jets they're getting. They want more fighter jets. They want to be secure. Should Russia try anything here, they want a commitment and a guarantee that NATO forces would be fighting in Poland, whether it is said so in as many words, or they expect Joe Biden to make a statement to that effect, that an attack on one NATO member is an attack on everyone, and that the combined might of NATO will be on Russia. That is what is expected. And of course, humanitarian assistance. More than 21 lakh Ukrainian citizens are today in Poland. They're getting healthcare, they're getting education, they'll get jobs. So the infrastructure here is suffering already. In weeks, the infrastructure here is feeling the pressure. What happens next? President Biden is likely to visit one or two humanitarian camps here, and he will interact with people, promise more money, promise more weapons, but not much beyond that.
Yeah, that's what's unfortunate.